Hey, what's up everyone, Sangtuary here, and we are back, but this time for something a bit different. I'm gonna do a tier list of all the Dune Imperium leaders. So, yeah, I wanted to try something a bit different, not only games, but maybe also a bit more like educational or opinion-based, let's put it that way rather, content. And this obviously reflects only my experience and my opinions, and I don't say this is the absolute truth. And I'd be very happy to have your own opinions as well in the comments. Or be sure to let a comment if you disagree with something, or if you want to give your own insights about a particular leader or situation. Anything like that would be very much appreciated. If you could as well hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and follow on Twitch would be absolutely amazing. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into the tier list. So we will do that in 3 parts. First, I'll rate the leaders only based on the Dune Imperium base game, no expansions. Obviously here you can see there's already all the leaders, but the leaders specific to Rise of X won't be placed on the tier list at that moment. Then we'll go through a tier list for Rise of X, and that's probably the one I will be most comfortable with, to be honest, because that's the game mode I've played the most and by far. So this is probably where my opinions are worth a bit more than the others opinions I have, not than the other players, obviously, because I still don't deem myself an excellent player. I have played a lot, but yeah, so if you want to listen to me as a new player, probably the best part of that tier list will be the one related to Rise of X, because that's where I have most experience. And then the third part will be related to X and Emo, and as a disclaimer, this is probably the one where it's really still a work in progress, because I haven't played that many games. It's been out for a couple of weeks, and before that I played maybe 3-4 games with the expansion, only with friends who also were discovering it, so we didn't have too many thoughts about it. So, without making you wait any longer, let me take up my notes and let's go in order here from left to right. So first one here for the base game would be Paul, and I would put him in B tier. He's strong, but not amazing. And I mean, he has one obvious route to points, I would say, and it is Spicemus Flows. Thanks to his ring that makes him draw cards, and his prescience, I think it's called, or foresight ability, however we want to call it, which allows him to see the top card of his deck. So obviously this is very strong to target Spicemus Flow purchases. So for that he's good. For the rest, he would probably need to find other route to points, obviously, because the game is not only about buying Spicemus Flows. So that's where he's maybe strong, but maybe not as consistent as others in the game, because you will need to adapt probably to other leaders. I mean, to be honest, you need to adapt in the game anyways, but there are some leaders who can break into their own path most of the game. Not name dropping anyone for now, but looking strongly at the Tessia or so for the rest of the video, that would be one where usually you know what the Tessia will be doing. Paul needs to probably adapt a bit. Memnon, for me, goes to C. For me, it's quite situational. Oh, that's maybe one thing I haven't done so far, sorry, is about the tiers. Well, you can read probably also the categories and probably understand from there on. What I mean by ranking them is not like Paul is necessarily always better than Memnon. No, in some situations, Memnon will be better for sure, but that will depend. And I would say here, this is more like in terms of more often than not, the leader in the top category will be better than the leader in the bottom category. But they all have their strength, they can all be played, and you can be the bottom ranked leader, in my opinion here, and still win a game against the top ranked. And this is something we'll probably also get back to. So yeah, for Memnon, I would say his passive is weak. His connection ability to take once the High Council seat taken, gaining 1 bump is pretty weak. But his signaturing is pretty good for spice generation. I'm not sure it's enough to compensate for his weak passive ability. Then we have Lido. I put him straight into S tier. He's God tier for me in base. he is the best leader in my opinion. His passive is insane. The discount of Solari on any Landsrad activity you would do, like Swordmaster costing 7 Solari instead of 8, High Council for 4, Menta only 1 Solari. This is absolutely crazy and super useful. And on top of that, he's got probably one of the best signet rings in the game as well, at least the one that allows you to be the most versatile as well, because it gives you influence where you need it potentially to build your friendships up, and you can focus on other things, maybe protecting your alliance, going for Spicemouth flows or combats, and all of that makes him an absolute S tier for me. Ilban for me goes straight into A tier. Again, his signet ability is good early game. Generating Solari is super important early game. Maybe not as good late game, but if you can build that advantage early by getting an early Swordmaster and everything, this is very strong. And his passive is very strong. Drawing when we spend Solari makes Menta a double draw place, so it is insane. And he's also very strong in getting Spicemouth flows, obviously, but a bit better than Paul, I would say. Not at getting Spicemouth flows necessarily, but just overall in the game, he feels like he's got a bit more versatility in his plays. Elena, I would put rank B, and I would actually put her in front of Paul here. I feel like her deck building activity is better, is more powerful, thanks to her ring. And the infiltrate ability to get a Swordmaster whenever you want, to get a research station. Late game, this can be absolutely game changing. This is very strong in my opinion. That makes her, I think, better than Paul. Beast for me is A. He's strong in combat and he's very strong early game as well. It does not sound like much getting one more Solari, or starting with one Solari and one Spice does not sound like much, but it actually changes a lot in terms of when you can get your Swordmaster, and this is super important for combat. So not only his ring gives you troops, but his passive ability gives you normally access to Swordmaster earlier, which is also very strong for combat, and this makes him an absolute beast in terms of combat. So yeah. Baron, I would also put him in A and probably above both of them, but this is debatable. But I mean, for me, he's got one of the best signet rings in the game. It is with a very high variance, because intrigues can be good or bad depending on what you need on that very moment, but it has a very high ceiling. And the more intrigues you get, obviously the more you can draw that luck towards you. And this, I feel like, is a potential game-winning tactic as well. Many people don't like that, but the fact is the game has still a lot of chance and luck involved. And if you can pay to get lucky with that signet ring, well, that makes him a very strong leader. We could argue to put him in S, but I think in base game he's not as strong, and he would probably stay A for me. The last leader of the base game is Ariana, and I would put her in C. She has a very strong signet. Water is so important, so that signet is probably one of the best in the game, but her passive is pretty weak. Drawing a card instead of getting spice, or instead of the first spice you would earn, is a bit weak, and it can even play against you in some circumstances. I mean, getting Hayliner, selective breeding, even potentially Conspire, or getting spice for an intrigue, like that intrigue that allows you to pay 4 spice to get a VP, which is called the Sleeper Must Awaken. All of that, you need spice, and if you cannot generate as much spice as you need because of your passive ability, that can be very frustrating, and I would put her in C. It is arguable. I would probably still put her above Memnon, to be honest. This is debatable, because he generates spice from his ring. So this is actually the opposite of what Ariana does with her passive, but she generates water, and water helps as well for Spicemouth flows, or Hardy for potential combats. So yeah, this is debatable. I'm not entirely sure. I would leave it as is, because otherwise I might spend another 10 minutes thinking about it. But yeah, so this would be it in terms of base game. I think this is how I would see my tier list. Let me know in the comments, by the way, how you agree with this, or which leaders you would put in some different spaces. Now for Rise of X, I would... I'm just going to put this music a bit lower because this song is a bit... It feels a bit louder, at least in my ears. Now let me go through the Rise of X leaders and at the same time those ones to see if I change them. I basically will go a bit in left to right here, and those leaders that have already been placed, I'll go through them as well at that same time. So Yuna, I would put her in C because she's very situational, but I'll put her probably above those two. She's situational in the sense that she's very strong, I feel like, as player 1 or 2, when you start as player 1 or 2, because you get those extra Solari for each action you do. And typically smuggling up and down can generate an insane amount of Solari if you're player 2 and you get smuggling twice. You can basically get Swordmaster around 2 guaranteed, plus already halfway through your High Council, for instance. So this is insane. And her ring is expensive, a bit frustrating early game because you won't be able to pay for it, but late game it can also be pretty powerful to get bumps, extra troops and extra spice. That influence bump can also give you troops if you choose to go, for instance, for the Emperor Alliance. So it can have very, very powerful situations. But again, it is situational, and I wouldn't necessarily pick her as player 4, for instance. Like, this is often a mistake. Tessia, well, she's absolutely S tier in front of Lido here for sure. She's insane. I mean, where she's very strong is she can rush through a game, or she can also control it, depending on the cards, the opponents and everything. But very versatile leader, very influence oriented thanks to her ring and passive, which are both very related to her snooper tokens. And yeah, overall, she's very strong, and one of the first picks you should take, whether you're player 1, 2, 3 or 4. I mean, if you're player 1 and you see her in Rise of X, you say thank you to everyone else, because this is absolutely crazy to leave her to you, but fair enough. Then we have Romber, her brother, basically, I assume, because they have the same last name with Tessia. Anyways, for me, he's also situational. Whether he's better than Yuna, maybe, because he can be better as player 3 or 4, so he's maybe a bit less situational, but he still depends a lot on techs. If there are good techs in the row, then he's a very good pick by default, and potentially as well on the pick of other leaders, because he's a bit combat oriented with, or can be very combat oriented with his Dreadnought ability. If there is another combat-oriented leader like a Beast or so, it might block a bit the way or the route to points you see for yourself. So that's where he's also a bit situational, I feel like. So it is debatable. To be honest, I prefer Yuna. So if I go with my own preference, I would probably put Yuna first. But I feel like Romber is strong and might be less situational than Yuna, so a bit higher there. I'll leave it like that because it's still about my video and my opinions, so I'll probably leave Yuna above. Then we have Paul. I'll leave him in B tier, to be honest. He's really, I don't know if you've played Mario Kart, but for me he's like Mario or Luigi, those drivers who have no real weakness but no real strength. He's really in the middle of the game, like he's a stable leader. You know what you get with him, basically. And if you see strong Imperium cards at the start of the game, like 5 or 6 costers, he could be a very good choice to try and grab those, unless Elena has been picked or is in the draft as well. That we might come to that a bit later as well. So after Paul, we would go to Memnon. For me, Memnon stays in C tier. Spice has a bit more importance given techs, because you buy techs with Spice, obviously. But yeah, he's still not really like overwhelming for me. He stays in C tier, in my opinion. Lido stays in S tier. For me, he's very versatile overall and very strong. So I'll just leave him there, and basically same comments as what I said in the base game. Maybe even a bit better thanks to the shipping track, because now he can take bumps there directly with his ring as well, which potentially gives him a double bump. So this can be pretty mean, potentially. Ilessa, I'll put her in D tier. For me, she's hard to play. Her passive is complicated and depends a lot on what other players do. And if you manage to anticipate what the other players do, you might get a couple of spies and Solari out of her passive ability. The thing is, not only you need to be strong in terms of anticipating, but other players need to be, as, let's put it that way, as logical as you to make the same decision as you, because they might have other priorities that you don't see as optimal, and so on and so on. So it is complicated, and you might regret sometimes setting a specific card aside, wishing you still had it for round one, and so on and so on. So, and her signet ability feels like not very strong, unless the Imperium row is really, really weak, in which case you kind of want to buy potentially those full space cards. Otherwise, I don't really want to spend my Solari. So, or at least not early game. So I'll leave her there because I'm not convinced by either her passive or signet ability. Ilban for me stays A tier, very strong. Andro, I would put him A tier as well, and probably above Ilban and Beast. Thing is, for me, he's on average A. He can be S tier, to be honest, depending on the game, depending on where you start, because as player 1 or 2, he's very strong. And how much shipping is contested, because if other leaders don't really focus it, shipping Andro becomes busted as well. He can drop to maybe B rank if there's a lot of movement on the shipping track. If you cannot get there, if you pick him as player 4, he might be a bit less, but his ceiling is so high when the game is good for him that I would just put him above Ilban. Ilban is more stable leader. Andro has higher upside. Given I'm a bit of a gambler, I'll put him above Ilban, although someone with different risk aversion, let's put it that way, might switch them. Again, everyone can have different opinions. Maybe some of you prefer Beast over those two. Fair enough, and this is not something I would say is necessarily wrong. It's just not my opinion. Now, Helena I would leave in B tier, to be honest. Same reasons as Paul, good in terms of deck building, but needs to find points elsewhere as well, and needs to kind of adapt to the rest of the game a bit. Beast, still A tier, very, very strong overall. Pretty much the same comments as well as I made in base game. Maybe slightly weaker because the shipping track offers alternative routes to recruiting troops, so his ring might have a bit less value here, but he's still very strong. Now Baron, he gets to the absolute top here. He straight first before Tessia, I feel like. Although it depends a bit on the game, I would say. If you play against random players, I would say he probably is absolute best, because you can run away with the game like never before. He can close games, not even surprisingly, round 6. And that's insane. But if you play against people who know their game, who are very experienced, he probably drops below Tessia, to be honest. Maybe even below Lido, because he is quite predictable and a bit easier to block than the other two, potentially. I mean, if you block Hardy the first 2 rounds, he loses a lot of tempo and is probably not able to run away with the game. And he can run out of steam around 7-8 if it goes that way. He can run out of steam and struggle to find the last few VPs to close a game, and then can end up easily 3rd or 4th in the game. So it really depends as well on let's say the player base, but I would still put him S tier here, just because of the shipping track and the importance of getting that Spacing Guild friendship. Armand for me is B tier. His trashing ability, his passive ability to trash cards is very strong. I feel like trashing is often underrated. Even just trashing 2 or 3 cards, it does not sound like much, but in a deck of 15 cards, 15 being already a bit too much, to be honest, if you trash 3 cards, you're down to 12, and this is a huge difference. because you get 5 cards in your hand every round, basically. Obviously, you can draw from different actions you make, but assuming you don't, you get 5 cards in your hand. 15 cards means you see your best card, you see it once every 3 rounds. 12 cards means you're closer to seeing it every 2 rounds. So this is busted, and trashing cards, getting a very thin deck is very satisfying and can be very strong if the game goes a bit longer than a typical Baron round 6 game, let's put it that way. I would still put Helena above him because of her signet allowing to potentially shortcut Armand's signet. I mean, in terms of cost of the card, because obviously if Armand plays before Helena, he can snatch a card costing 3 before Helena, so that would be shortcutting her, I assume. That's not what I meant. It's more like Helena's signaturing has a wider range of deck building ability, whereas Armand is only able to shotgun a card that costs 3 or less, let's put it that way. But stronger than Paul, I would feel like. Ariana, in my opinion, drops to down to D tier, probably still above Ilessa, because of the importance of spice with the decks. And yeah, the fact she generates less spice makes it a bit more complicated, in my opinion, and that's where I would put her now. So this would be basically my Rise of X tier list. Yeah, pretty even, by the way. I'm pretty proud of that. There's not like an overwhelming number in the midsection, which often happens with tier lists. I'm pretty happy with that. But before we jump to the last tier list here, I'd like to repeat again, these are my opinions, and again, even though these are how I see those different leaders in terms of strength, it's not a cooking recipe. It's not like, I see Helena, I'll take her over Yuna every game. No, absolutely not. Some leaders can become much more powerful depending on the cards in the Imperium row, as well as other leaders that have been picked. For example, I would rather go with a deck builder leader if there is no other deck builder in the game. So Helena, Armand, and Paul would pretty much have the same kind of game. If Paul is already in the game and Armand as well, I'll almost never take Helena because I'll get it in their way, they'll get in my way, and we probably will allow the fourth player to run away with his own route to victory. Same with a combat-oriented leader, maybe Beast or Rumber. I might not go for one if the other is already there. Same with the influence focus leaders, the 3 S tier here. If I see Baron and Tessia in the game already, I might think twice before going Lido, to be honest. Or Lido and Ilban, both of them generating or having ease with the Solari actions, let's put it that way. I would maybe not go for Ilban if I see a Lido in the game, because I might get Menta much less often, and so on and so on. This is basically the strategy here, is to try and choose a free lane to victory, a free road to points. Chasing uncontested points is often better and can help you to actually focus then on other points at the same time, because if you have an alliance and you need to defend it, well, that's probably at the expense of something else, like a combat or an SMF or an other friendship, and so on and so on. So this is a bit what I wanted to say before we jump to the next part, is this is not a cooking recipe. On average, yes, I feel like those leaders are stronger than those, and so on and so on, but there are definite cases where I would rather go for a Handro over a Baron, for instance, and so on. Yeah, so now if we go to X and Immortality, all the leaders are already here. I'm just going to go through them in the same order as I did so far, so it might get a bit confusing, but I have my notes on the side, so otherwise I'll get a bit confused if I'll probably forget one. So Yuna, for me, stays pretty much the same. Tessia, the same, but might actually jump up to the top for her versatility, in the sense that she often does not run out of steam, not like a Baron, and can go on for longer games, which is obviously the case as well with Go to 11. So I might put Tessia first here. Rumber, I rate him pretty much the same, to be honest, not much of a change. Paul, I would drop him to C, and probably even below Yuna and Rumber. because Spice Smooth Flow is a bit more complicated, at least I feel like, to buy, given the grafting in Immortality and the fact that agent actions are so much more important, that actually early revealing feels bad most of the time because you have better to do. So yeah, I feel like he drops a bit down there. Lido stays S for his versatility, to be honest. He's gonna stay here the entire time, I feel like. Memnon for me drops to D. For pretty much the same reasons as Paul. The fact that High Council might be a bit less important because you might not focus Spice Smooth Flows as often as you would in the other games. So his passive relying on you getting High Council might not even be triggered depending on what kind of direction your game takes. Ilessa to me jumps to C, maybe even B or higher depending on the game. But again, that means she's actually situational because she relies on grafting cards, especially, to be honest, because that can make her passive ability much more stronger and much more interesting to play. So I'll probably put her at the top of the situational because she can become very strong with the right situation. So a high upside there. And her signet ring generating false spaces might also actually help with your grafting cards or with different combos like the Slick Farmer, other very specific cards like that actually work very well with false spaces. Ilban stays A, in my opinion. He could even go a bit higher thanks to some of the very powerful green cards that have been added thanks to with the Immortality expansion. But yeah, maybe actually here I think I'd probably put him higher than Handro. Yeah, Handro's the next one. He stays A in my opinion, but probably drops a bit, maybe even below Beast, to be honest. Although we could argue that shipping is overall a bit less contested based on all the new mechanics brought up by Immortality, like the research track and the grafting, potentially making agent plays more powerful in other direction, not necessarily having to rely on shipping tracks. So if it's less contested in a given game, he might jump higher again. If not, probably put him behind Beast here. Helena stays B in my opinion. Deck building is important, but trashing becomes more valuable. Because of the Tleilaxu cards, you add more cards to your deck, or you want to at least. So trashing becomes more important, and additions to your deck needs to be a bit more measured to make sure you don't get to a 17, 20, 23 card deck, which is unplayable at some point, or very, very dependent on luck. Beast stays A, as we said before. I'd probably leave him here, not much more to say about that. Baron stays S rank, I think, but drops slightly, especially in the Go to 11 format. I'd probably even drop him below Lido, to be honest. So yeah, he and Lido could switch places here, to be honest, but depends a bit as well on the game. So I'll leave it like that because his upside is still probably a bit higher than Lido's. Armand, in my opinion, Armand rises to A here, to be honest, because of the trashing. Trashing is so much more important, I feel like, in Immortality. And if you can get those stronger Tleilaxu cards, like a Gola, like Unnatural Reflexes, like, to be honest, Tleilaxu Infiltrator, there are so many good Tleilax cards, so many other Imperium cards that have been added as well that are so good. And if you can get those as often as possible by trashing the rest of your deck, this is absolutely amazing. So I'd do that. And even for those who say, yeah, but you only have the 2 daggers and Reconnaissance to trash, early game I agree with you, but even just trashing 3 cards is already a huge step, and most of players cannot do that in their game, so this is already underrated. But after a while, the ring can easily be trashed as well. Experimentation might be trashable as well, depending on how much or how far you went on the research track. Convincing arguments could be trashed as well, so you have targets. By the time you trash your daggers and Reconnaissance, you probably have other targets. And now Ariana, for me, goes up to C. and probably maybe even B, to be honest, because she's an absolute research machine. And in Immortality, generating that water helps actually to do more research on research station, paying the 2 water to draw 2 cards and experiment, but also on playing your experimentation, which is an important card to play. And if you don't have shipping access, if smuggling is taken, if Imperial Basin is taken, which often happens, then you need actually water to play it. So I feel like we could put her B, but I'm still hesitating, yeah. She could be high C or low B. I'll put her low B, I guess, right now, because C is already quite crowded. So we could even put also, I guess, Ilessa up here, although she depends very much still on the grafting card, so no, she probably stays situational. And that would be it for the last tier list here. Now we can quickly go to a summary. All right, there we go. So here is the summary basically of what I've presented before. This is basically the tier list as I've prepared it, except I think Ariana, in the end I put her in B tier or X plus Immo, but the rest should be pretty accurate, I think. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you find this kind of content, if I should continue maybe on also trying to rank cards or text or whatever else. And let me know as well, obviously, if you agree or what, or rather on what you disagree, because there's certainly going to be disagreements, and I'm looking forward to read and debate with you. So thanks a lot, everyone, for having a watch. If you enjoyed that, hit that like button, please, and subscribe, follow would be absolutely amazing. Helps a lot, and I hope to see you very soon again. Have a good one. Bye-bye.